Welcome to the School of Love, the place where miracles are normal. Hello, and welcome to the School of Love, the place where we learn practical tools based on scientific research towards improving ourselves, living life to its fullest, and contributing to the best of our abilities to the world around us. I am Dr. Maria Grajdian, and I'm a professor of media studies and anthropology at Hiroshima University. In my free time, I'm doing my best to guide you in building up a life of contentment, joy, and fulfillment while applying lessons learned in school to overcome the difficulties, challenges, and insecurities of the real world. In today's video, I talk about discipline and how to develop sustainable discipline. I began by defining what is discipline and why it is important to develop it, and to encourage the same in others, so that by the end of this video, you will have the tools to start living, moving, thinking like a person who is disciplined out of self-awareness and free will, and not due to social constraints. And now, first things first, that is to disclaimers. The first disclaimer serves to strongly emphasize the fact that this YouTube channel, the School of Love, is not part of my educational and research activities at Hiroshima University. It is nonetheless part of my privilege, joy, and sense of duty to propagate and implement knowledge, information, as well as motivation and inspiration outside the limited framework of academic endeavors. Together, we can build up a better tomorrow for as many of us as possible. The second disclaimer relates to the fact that I'm a trained musician and musicologist, and not a psychologist, therapist, or counselor. The ideas I'm sharing in my videos reflect my deep-going preoccupation with life, my own life and other people's life, and express the results of my experiences, research, and for better or for worse, my failures, as well as my recovery from those failures. Recovery which is continuously ongoing. The ideas expressed in the videos on this channel named the School of Love cannot and may not and must not replace the consultation of specialists in whichever areas of your life you might have questions or you might struggle with. If you are new to the channel, at this moment I would like to ask you to please consider subscribing, sharing, liking, commenting. Thank you very, very much. This helps us not only with the mysterious algorithm which seems to dominate the galaxy of YouTube, but also with contributing to the expansion of the community of humans doing their best to impact positively the world and those around them by discovering their authentic selves and living life wholeheartedly. Thanks again. So, what is discipline? And what is health discipline? And in my opinion, in my definition of discipline, discipline is the ability to do things because I want to do it, to do them, not because of the rewards, of some rewards which might await for me at the end of the task. And I do it out of self-commitment, out of a sense of duty towards myself, not because society forces the fulfillment of those duty upon me. So what is the difference between doing things, this kind of discipline in which I do things because I believe in them, and the situation in which I do things because society wants me to do it? And of course, things get mixed up, because there are things which I do because I have to do because society tells me to do. But at the same time, there are things which I do because I decide to do them, and they outnumber by far those I do out of senseless obligation. The reason why it's important to do things out of a sense of commitment towards yourself, out of a promise you do towards yourself, is because if you do things due to social pressure, you do them poorly, and you will feel increasingly a sense of resentment, which automatically leads to contentment towards yourself or towards the others. And as I said, we live in a world in which we have to do things for the sake of doing them. But if there are few in comparison with those we decide to do, then we can live with it. But if we do too many things out of a sense of meaningless obligation, then we would lose ourselves in time. In time, we'll forget that we are what we are, and that we, in particular in these times where we live, I don't know, 80, 90, 100 years, it's not possible to live with that sense of constraint and obligation and forcefulness long term. This will lead at some point to some sort of what they call nowadays mental health problems. But everything can be solved if we become aware. And this is the first step in this procedure I'm going to talk about today in building up discipline, developing discipline, and developing a healthy, sustainable discipline. Is the first step is understand the importance of awareness. So awareness is what I have been doing so far in this video, in previous videos as well, is why is the world working the way it works? Why is it better to do things one way and not another way? Why do we move, love, live the way we do and not another way? And this will automatically lead to the second step, which is develop self-awareness. Because then this generalized, this universal sense of awareness becomes more focused on oneself. Why am I doing what I am doing? Why am I thinking what I am thinking? What is my position in the world? And once you do this, you'll observe that suddenly you'll have more questions than answers in a first step. But those questions are not so much about questioning yourself, but about finding your own position in the world. And in case of discipline, is to understand what that discipline is not so much about doing things because you have to do, or doing things because you are motivated to do or inspired to do. These are very fleeting emotions. I'll talk about them a little bit later. But it's about because you do a commitment to yourself to do specific things to the best of your abilities at that moment. It doesn't mean you do them perfectly. It only means you do them as well as you can. And connected to this, is very important to understand, to learn to sense the spirit of time, or what the Germans call the Zeitgeist. So the sense of time, because depending on era in which you are living, depending on the country you are living, depending on society in which you are living, specific values are encouraged and rewarded and appreciated, and specific values are not rewarded, appreciated, and encouraged. And once you understand the spirit of time, moving on to number 4, is understand that the world, societies, groups, people, humans behave and move according to specific values. And these values change. And what is not so much that they change, that the values themselves change. What changes is their position within a so-called hierarchy of values. This comes from Jordan Peterson. And he talks about the hierarchy of values, or hierarchies of values, because we cannot talk about one hierarchy dominating the entire world. We cannot talk about one hierarchy dominating even one person if we take that person throughout his or her entire life. We talk about a plurality of hierarchies of values. And it's important to understand the spirit of time, because then, combined with the values which which dominate a specific society, a specific point in time, you can understand the values and the hierarchy of values and the position of those specific values within the specific hierarchy of values typical for you. And this is important because you live within a specific context, within a specific geographical and historical context. And it's important that you as an individual do not clash against the limitations and the circumstances of your very real life. So what I'm saying now, and this is maybe different from what other people are saying, is that before you decide to do something, you have to be very careful and very sure that what you are doing is not going to be detrimental to you, but actually it will contribute to a better life for yourself and for those around you. We always have to think what's good for me might not necessarily be in the best interest for those around us. But then again, we also must be careful that we do not lose ourselves because we submit too much to the wishes, dreams, expectations of those around us. Yeah. So, and in my opinion, this is very this is crucial. Yeah, that we keep a healthy sense of self within the others, among the others. But at the same time, we keep observing those around us so that we do not clash against them, which would be deadly. We have to keep on living and find the best balance between our own selves and those around us. And connected with this one is that it's very important to understand that in building up discipline, do not rely on motivation or inspiration. Both of them are emotions, and like love. And emotion, the very word emotion, comes from Latin word e movere, which means something which moves continuously. So you cannot rely on emotions. Today you love someone, and in a couple of months you don't love that someone anymore because the cocktail of hormones which created that sense of infatuation is gone. You cannot rely on that one. That's why self-aware commitment is much more important than relying on some sort of emotions or messages mediated by the media, conveyed by the media. So in that context, discipline transcends motivation. Discipline is a promise you make to yourself, and because it's a promise you make to yourself, and probably nobody knows about it, then you're very committed to it. At least I would be. I would be more committed to a promise made to myself than to a promise made towards the others. And in this context, I come back to my definition of discipline. Discipline is doing things because one has to do it out of this inner sense of commitment towards one, promise towards oneself, not because you have to do out of social constraints or due to the rewards waiting for you at the other end of the fulfilled task. So in building and in doing your best to build up discipline, do not rely on the emotion of motivation or inspiration. So in my opinion, the easiest and the best way, the most practical way of developing discipline is by starting a daily routine, which then you can expand little by little to a weekly and a monthly routine. There are people who have a yearly routine, like going on holiday, vacation holiday, or family vacation or family holiday, to specific areas every year. I don't have that, but I have very strict daily routine, and which then expanded to a weekly and monthly routine. Again, it's important that while developing discipline, you do not become an emotionless, rigid robot. It's about becoming a consistent, a person, a human with a deep-seated sense of consistency and respect towards the other, so that you do what you say you do and people can rely on you doing what you say you're doing, so that you mean what you say and you say what you mean and people can rely on this and you can rely on this. So it's about becoming a flexible human, and this flexibility is not built up on your motivation to do things, but on your ability to, but on your commitment and your ability to respect that commitment towards oneself. So my daily routine, for instance, is that I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then I work until 12:30, and then I have a big breakfast brunch. Then I do some work which does not require too much intellectual work, so like cleaning or doing the dishes or hanging the laundry or folding the laundry. And then after 5 o'clock, when my kids come back from school, I spend time with them. And this continues. Every week I have at least one day in which I do nothing, or in which this routine goes out of the window. I still keep the breakfast after 12 o'clock, eating after 12 o'clock, so that I don't destroy my intermittent fasting routine. And then but I do my best to spend as much time as I can with my family. And then every 10 days I have 2 days in which I do nothing. And what's important about this day, I'll talk about this when I talk number 9 when I talk about the so-called cheat day, is that I'm very it's not that I'm strict about it, but it's a decision which I have taken for myself and which I have observed that gives me the most energy, the most kind of refreshing calmness. So I'm not detached from outside world, but I observe it with some sort of humor. It also gives me openness to have and flexibility to meet other people when they can, which is a huge advantage if you come when you're a grown up. And of course, I have my weekly and monthly routine. For instance, every week I calculate my calories intake, and every month I do the financial planning for next month, and then I see how far I have respected my financial planning for this month, and so on. But the most important one is the daily routine, which then I said I have 1 week of every week I have 1 day in which I'm a little bit more loose with this routine, and then 2 days in which I'm also flexible, every 10 days. So not every 2 weeks, but every 10 days. So why is it important to have this daily routine and then to stick to it? Because it will develop in you, even if you don't understand it at the theoretical level, but it will develop in you a sense of that your life is your responsibility. So therefore, taking radical responsibility, as Jordan Peterson puts it, and extreme ownership, as Jocko Willing puts it, will lead you to understand that only by implementing ironclad discipline you'll be able to have some sort of control over your own life. Of course, we cannot control everything, but we can take over some control for our own lives if we are disciplined enough that specific things do not change. And again, the idea is not to become a rigid robot. The idea is to become flexible enough that within a specific set of routine movements, you still have the freedom to do whatever you want. Number 9, and here I have already suggested that, is that consistency is key. If you allow yourself a so-called cheat day in which you do not follow the routine, make sure that whatever you have to do on that day, sometimes you really have to do things on the day you have decided to be your cheat day. Whatever you do on that day, make sure that you do it the day before. The alternative is to do it the day after. But experience and research shows that if you put it to do it afterwards, for reasons which I won't go into details, they're very complicated reasons, actually very simple reasons, but if you start to try to understand these very simple things by means of scientific research, suddenly it turns very complicated. So research and research shows, and my experience shows, that if you postpone to do the thing after the cheat day, you probably won't do it. You'll postpone it indefinitely, and then you won't do it anymore. Yeah? So I would strongly suggest to do it before. So that cheat day doesn't mean you don't do anything anymore. It just means that you allow yourself to be a little bit more relaxed, so that your brain and your body understands, I have the freedom. I'm not a prisoner of my own commitment. I have the freedom to break it anytime. I don't do it because it is my decision. I don't know why it works, but it works. It worked in my case, it worked in other people's cases, and it works. Allowing you a cheat day, which doesn't bring your entire routine out of control, out of whack, but it will give you the confidence at the level which you cannot control, that you do the things you do because you have decided to. You want them to do, not because you do not have a choice, which is the case when you do them out of social constraints. And number 10 is to learn to perceive things without judgment, without criticism. And this goes for first and foremost for yourself. When you decide to become a more disciplined person, when you decide to become a better person, and to implement all these guidelines, not all, but some of these guidelines, do it with kindness. Do it in a gentle manner. This will allow you to do it sustainably. You know you can quit anytime. You don't because you decide not to. And this will help you to ignore or to bounce off external distractions and toxic criticism, which is more often than not toxic self-criticism. So learning to accept you for who you are, the beautiful human being, the beautiful work in progress. And doing your best as much as you can every day. And sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes you just lay down, lay your weapons down. You just enjoy life. And this is good too. This is part of being human. And this will allow the discipline and building up discipline being more constructive and more, like as I said, long-term sustainable. So that would be for today. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for joining me today. I hope I deliver some helpful insights into what it means to be to develop healthy, sustainable discipline. And I'm looking forward to welcoming you very soon again. Love and peace to you all.